Cubs in the Tub, the true story of the Bronx Zoo's first woman zookeeper. Cubs in the Tub, the true story of the Bronx Zoo's first woman zookeeper. Candace Fleming, illustrated by Julie Downing. Helen and Fred Martini longed for a baby to bottle feed and burp, a baby to rock and soothe and croon lullabies to, a baby to love with all their hearts. Every morning, Fred went off to his job at the Bronx Zoo. Helen stayed home to dream and plan, but still there was no baby until Helen had never held a lion cub before, much less cared for one. Still, she took the baby in her arms. He was so tiny, so newly born, his eyes were still closed. Just do it for him. What would you do for a human baby? Why isn't he with his mother? Fred explained the mother lion had lost the instinct to take care of her baby. She wouldn't feed him. She wouldn't clean him. She refused to even look at him. Helen cradled the baby close. She marveled at the tiny buds of his ears and the tender pink undersides of his toes. MacArthur. I'll name you MacArthur. The first thing MacArthur needed was a bath. Good thing Helen had a baby tub. She sang a lullaby as she sponged his fur. Soon he was as fluffy and as soft as a lamb. MacArthur gave a husky cry. Good thing she had those baby bottles and all those cans of formula milk. MacArthur slurped. Then, a gentle pat on his back brought up the bubbles in his belly. With a sigh, the baby snuggled his downy head into the curve of Helen's neck. His sweet breath warmed her skin. Tiptoeing to the crib, good thing she had one. She tucked him in, curling his little legs beneath him. MacArthur dreamed. And grew. Helen kept a record of his first. On their 11th day together, MacArthur opened his eyes, a soft blue. On their 15th day together, he got his first tooth, a needle-sharp incisor. And on their 21st day together, he took his first stumbling steps, a great day. Soon, MacArthur was pouncing at Helen's ankles, chewing on Fred's boots, and leaping into their laps when either of them sat. What joy it was to have a baby in the house. But when MacArthur was 2 months old, officials decided to send him to the zoo in another city. Helen held her baby close until the car came, and tried to smile as MacArthur was driven away. Then she folded up the baby blankets, stowed tub, crib, and bottles, and sank into the rocking chair with empty arms and an empty lap. Gray day followed, gray day, until Helen stroked the babies, so cold, so thin, so still. They're in a pretty bad way. Good thing she had a heating pad. She slipped it beneath their tiny bodies and turned it to high. Then she mixed a batch of warm formula and squeezed it into their mouths. Drip, drop, drip. 1, 2, 3. Babies began to wiggle. The kitchen filled with a faint chorus of high-pitched cries. She named them Rangini, Daka, and Rajpur. And once they started eating, they could not stop. Every 3 hours. Around the clock. Good thing Helen had Fred to help with those 2 a.m. feedings. By the end of the first week, the babies had doubled their weight to 4 pounds. Days passed, blue eyes opened, and folded ears perked up. Little teeth poked through pink gums. Personalities appeared. Rangini cried whenever Helen put him down, and bit and scratched when he didn't get his way. Daka was forever boxing her brother's face with her fat little paws, then rolling on top of them and pinning him down. Rajpur liked to sleep. Good naturally, he accepted whatever came his way, especially food. Helen let them get away with all sorts of mischief. They romped and tumbled, they snuggled and purred. What a joy it was to have 3 babies in the house. But when they were 3 months old, it's time for the cubs to return to the zoo. Not without me, not this time. When the car came for them, Helen climbed in. Her babies needed her. At the zoo, she turned the glass paneled cage into a cozy home. Blankets, bottles, boxes of toys. Good thing Helen brought them all. Then peeking around the partition, she watched her babies play. She called them back for naps and snacks and cuddles. That night, when the zoo visitors left the zoo, the cubs sensed that Helen was leaving too. Rangini cried. Daka clung to her ankles, and Rajapur scrambled up into Helen's arm and wrapped his paws around her neck. Refusing to stay in their cribs, the 3 struggled against sleep. It was midnight before Helen finally tiptoed home. In her own bed, she tossed and turned. She imagined she heard her babies crying. At first light, she rushed back to the zoo. Her little ones were still curled up, fast asleep. She kissed 1, 2, 3 sleepy cubs awake. Then it was bottles, baths, time to play. Day followed day. No one noticed Helen, so no one told her to go home. Helen began to dream and plan. Is there an empty room around? Fred showed her the storage room, in secret and between bottles and baths. Helen cleaned, painted, decorated, and created a nursery. Good thing Helen had all the baby equipment. That first night, the babies sniffed at the pink ceiling and pale blue walls, then ruffled curtains, the cribs and toys. Then, snuggling close to Helen, they purred. Now the cubs spent their days in the glass-paneled cage, but they spent their nights with Helen in the nursery. News of the nursery reached the zoo officials. They stormed through the door and stopped dead in their tracks. Helen raised her chin. My babies need me. The officials looked at one another. So they do, agreed Mr. Cradle, the zoo curator, and he offered her the job of zookeeper of the nursery. Helen was delighted and surprised. Only men had held zookeeper jobs. Until now. Helen had mothered her way into becoming the first woman zookeeper at the Bronx Zoo. She and her nursery stayed. The babies grew, too big for laps, too big for cribs, too big for the nursery. Officials moved them to a larger outdoor enclosure. Without Helen, they worried the 10-month-old tigers would hurt her. Nonsense. Even though they were twice her size, Helen argued they still run to me for protection and comfort. But zoo officials were firm. Helen would never again be allowed to enter the tiger's cage. Pressed against the outside of the bars, her arms felt empty. But not for long. What a happy zoo family. The end.